Hi, it's Commodore Sam coming to you once again from Lower Alabama, LA. Today we've got another episode in our Prog8 series. We've had several episodes where we've taken you from installing the tool chain on Windows all the way through working through how you would program a game and how you would then make that game cross-platform across multiple machines based on the 6502. Mostly Commodore, but a few Commodore-ish computers. Anyway, what we've got for you today, we're just backtracking a little bit, and we've got the Mac install, how to install the tool chain on the Mac OS, MacBook, etc. So what we've got following the next video, we'll get back into a little bit of more of the programming. So stay tuned for that. But that next episode will be not back on the game, but on a different programmer's work. One of our Prog8 members. I think you will like it. It's a little, I guess maybe a little more intense than a game in some ways. So stay tuned for that. But now what we have for you is that Mac install, and I've got Andrew queued up to make that introduction and instruction for you. So hold tight.
All right. Hey, everyone. This is actually a freshly installed version of macOS. It's version 26.2 Tahoe. And basically just did a clean install of it, and then I added Teams here for this meeting. The first thing we need to do with macOS is install the Homebrew package manager, and that will then let us install almost everything that we need. So since I'm starting here with a clean install, we'll use the built-in Safari browser that comes with the Mac, and we will get it onto the correct screen over here. And we need to go to brew.sh, and we'll have these links down below, but it's Homebrew is at brew.sh. There's a good description of it on here, and I recommend reading through this a little bit. It talks about how to use it, how to add your own packages if you want, a lot of good information. But for our purposes, we're going to just install it and install the packages that we need. So to install it, we run this command, which pulls down an installer and then executes it. So we need a terminal. I've got terminal right here, but the way to bring up your terminal that's easiest is to hit Command Space, which pops up the Spotlight search, and then you can say terminal, and then you can hit enter. It'll bring up your terminal window. And then we're going to want this command right here, which they provide a convenient button to copy it. So we copy that to the clipboard. You can right click and hit paste. And then essentially it's going to run call bash with the parameter of download, what's returned by downloading this installer. And so bash is going to run and do an install here. So it's going to ask for my password to install some things and create some directories and whatnot. So we run that. And then it basically says, it's going to install in /opt homebrew. It's going to install these various, a binary called brew, a bunch of different directories, and then it needs to install the Xcode command line tools. So that's going to take a little while here. And we might cut some of that out. It takes like 3-4 minutes on my machine. But what it's essentially going to do here is going to run the Apple built-in software update tool. So that's happening right here. And then it's saying install this package called command line tools for Xcode 26.2, which is the version that I'm running. And then now it'll be downloading this here for several minutes. While it's doing that, what I'm going to do is also download the Commander X16 emulator, and it is needed in the next step if we want to support Commander X16. So if we go to Google we can just say Commander, I want to sign in, Commander X16 emulator, and you should get to GitHub, but there's a little problem where the community had split a while back. Notice here that it says this project moved. So it's not under the Commander X16 project, it's under the X16 community project. So that's the one that you want to make sure you get, which this is, here is the wrong version. Okay, and it says it's moved. So just pointing that out, that it's X16 community. So we're going to go over here to releases. We want the latest, which is release 49. We're going to go down here and we're going to download. In my case, this is an Apple with, or a Mac with Apple Silicon. So I need this version right here. And it's saying, hey, do you want to allow downloads? And I'll say yes. So while that's downloading, we're essentially waiting, but over here in my original window, it's now downloaded the command line tools and it's installing it. Let's get rid of this window. Once this is done, it essentially pulls down a bunch of package metadata, like of what packages are available. And then we can issue some commands from the command line to ask it to install some packages. And so the package we're going to need is Prog8, which depends on Java and the 64 task compiler. But the homebrew package is actually going to handle all those dependencies for us and get it in the path and all of that. So really we're just, waiting here for this thing to complete, and then we can move on to the next step. While we're doing that,
I guess one thing that is maybe someone that's just a casual, of course, if you're a casual, maybe you're, not someone that wants to program, but if you've been on the Windows environment for a really long time, maybe you're not used to a package manager type scenario, and it's very common on Linux based systems, and of course, macOS is a Linux-based system.
Yeah, and they actually call this the missing package manager for macOS, and it also supports running on Linux. But Windows more recently has added things like winget that some people use, but it's still not the common use by normal non-IT type people. So this is installed. It's now telling us we need to do a little bit to set it up, but it's actually done that for us. So we'll just close this window and then we'll open a new one. And we say which brew. We now have the homebrew command or the brew command. So what we're interested in is Prog8. And so I'll just do a quick show you what homebrew, like, so we do brew info, and that's just going to tell us a little bit about the package, and you can do, some search commands and whatnot, but I know that, it's called brew info. But we'll just note here under dependencies, we have required OpenJDK and task64 or 64 tasks. It's going to automatically install those. So we can basically just say brew install Prog8, and it's going to pull it down, install it, and we'll be ready to go once it's done. And it has a bunch of different dependencies, which most of these are because of Java, and it will just pull those in. And then, or maybe some baseline packages too, but like right here, we can see task64 is pulled down. Now it's pulling down the OpenJDK, and it gives you a nice progress bar of the download. So just about pulled down. And then once this is done, it pulled them all down. Now it's going to install them, and then we will be able to run the Prog8 compiler. which should already be in the path, but if for some reason it isn't, you could just exit this window and open a new one. But so here it's done. If we just say Prog8 C-version, so now it says that it's got, version 12.0.1 installed, which, just came out basically this week. And so we're good to go. Then, since we're developing for, say, Commodore 64 and also Commander X16, which I downloaded that emulator earlier, but we can say brew info vice, and that gives us information about the Vice Commodore emulator, and just, spits out some information. You don't really need that. You can just say brew install Vice, but it is sometimes interesting just to check out that information. It also lists the homepage of the projects. If you want to look at them on the web or whatever, if you don't want to Google it. So we've installed Prog8. The compiler is already able to be run. We're installing Vice. Then we'll be able to run the C64 emulator. We downloaded the Commander X16 emulator earlier while we were waiting for the homebrew install. And we'll set that up right next. So here we'll just say which X64SC, which is the one emulator we run. So that's in the path, good to go. Now, if we said which X16EMU, we don't have that because there isn't a homebrew package for that yet. So we need to install that manually. That's really the one thing that we need to do manually. And I downloaded that earlier, which it's, in the download windows here. So we can go into here. It's in the downloads folder. Now, this really probably could be put into an applications directory, utilities directory, or some better organization, and I don't agree really with running it out of the downloads either. So what I'm going to do is just drag this over and put it right here on the P8 user, which happens to be the user ID that I'm logged in as, which puts it in its home directory. So in there we have desktops, downloads, etc., and then we have this directory. Well, that directory needs to be in the path to be useful. And on the Mac, the shell defaults to ZSH, and ZSHRC is where we add that to the path. Well, there isn't one by default, and so just show here that it doesn't exist. What we will do is we can overwrite the existing one, we can append to an existing one, we can use the VI editor, and that would be my preference here. We'll run this. It's a new file. We would add it to the path with ZSH. We can just say path plus equals, and then in parentheses, we're going to say tilde/, and that's our home directory. And then the name of this directory over here, which is X16AMU _ macOS _ M1 -R49, like this. So we'll close this window. We'll open a new one. Now, if we say which X16EMU, it now finds it in the path, and we can, run it if we want to, just to verify that it works. Now, notice it says, hey, we can't verify this is free of malware, and we should go ahead and move it to the trash. Well, it's being quarantined because it's not signed. So we downloaded from GitHub. It's from the Commander X16 community project. I know that it's not infected, but it isn't signed. So you have to use a tool to remove the quarantine. You can go into system settings, and you should be able to go to security and privacy, or privacy and security. And that was in there. And then say here, it says X16 was blocked to protect your Mac, and then we'll say allow anyway. So now if we go back over here and we try to run it, it's going to say, hey, we're not able to verify this, but now we have this option of open anyway. So we can say open anyway. It's really nervous about it, so it wants my password. I'll give my password and say okay, and there's the emulator. We'll just say power off. Now, if we run it again, it won't ask us those things because we've authorized it. A little bit of a complication there, but you know, it's important for security, obviously. And I'm bypassing it, but I trust this source, so it's okay. Now, the next step we want is, so we have the Prog8 compiler, which we installed with Homebrew. It installed the JDK and the assembler that's needed. We installed Vice with Homebrew, and then we just manually installed the Commander X16 emulator. So the last thing we really need is the IDE, and we're recommending IntelliJ IDE, or IntelliJ IDEA, which is the IDE. So what I'll show you here with Homebrew is a quick way of, we can say Homebrew search, and then you can give it a name of something. So in this case, we're going to search for IntelliJ, and it has these things called casks, which are prepackaged, like downloadable packages that you would get from the developer or the maker, versus open source packages, which are just the normal formula or brews. So it found 3. I will just say that you want the IntelliJ IDEA, because this CE or Community Edition, they're actually deprecating that, and the functionality has been rolled into just the main IntelliJ. So we really just need to install this one, and it'll handle it. And so it'll give us the free unlicensed use, and then if people want to license it, it's the same product. So we just say brew install IntelliJ-IDEA. It's going to fetch it, which is going to take a little while on my connection. And then we'll install that and essentially be ready to go. While it's doing that, I can show you the Hello World repository that we're going to clone. It's under my GitHub. It's just Prog8 Hello, and we'll have the link down below in the description. But I guess we'll make this a little bigger while that window is happening over there. So in here we have a make file, which currently this make file is set up for Windows, or for Mac and Linux, and it should also work on Windows. I do have to make a couple of tweaks to it and retest it on Windows, but it's what you want here for this Mac demonstration. And then in the source code, we just have main.p8, which is just our basic hello world. But what I was going to show in the make file is that I added the Commander X16 emulator so that we can run this EMU C64 target to run on the C64 with Vice. And then we can run this EMU CX16 target to run it on the Commander X16 with the X16 emulator that we just installed. So this Hello is now, we can run it on both of those platforms instead of just the C64, which is what we showed in the previous videos. And this is still downloading, a little ways to go, but and we mentioned in the other videos, which you could watch, but if you're only interested in installing and running on a Mac, you probably found this one. We recommend IntelliJ IDEA just because the developer, actually the Prog8 compiler, uses that when he develops, and so he actually defines the Prog8 syntax files for the highlighting, syntax highlighting and whatnot in the editor, and it's basically the best supported from that perspective. Visual Studio Code also works, but the package there hasn't been updated in a while. It was being done by a third party, and they've, kind of moved on. And just in general, IntelliJ IDEA is a really good IDE. If you're not familiar with the JetBrains products, check them out. Not a paid promotion. But it's downloaded now, and it's going to extract and install this IDE. So the one last thing we will need to go with this is the syntax highlighting files that I mentioned. And we'll just grab those while this is still doing that install. Let me it's basically at Ermin, or Desert Fish as known, GitHub, Ermin/Prog8. You can Google Prog8 and it'll come up. We're looking for, down here, we're looking for this one, which is syntax files. So inside there's the JetBrains IDEs, and then there's this Prog8 XML. So let me download this first. So we don't want to grab this. We want to download with this download button, which downloads the raw. So we'll download this, and that'll give us this Prog8 XML in our downloads directory. And then this has some instructions for how to install it, which we will do here in a minute. So we can see from this message that our IntelliJ IDEA was successfully installed. And we can again hit the command space, and then we can say IntelliJ, and it finds it, and we'll launch it. It says, hey, you want to open this for sure? And it's like, yes. Little user agreement that you can read through that I've done a few times, whether or not you want to share some usage statistics. It has some features like SSH and remote interpreters, or remote shells, so you can allow that if you want to use it with some remote, like a Raspberry Pi or other Linux box. You don't need to. So once you're in this screen, there's a plugin we need to add for Makefiles. We just click on this plugins right here. It brings up this thing about auto update. We'll just say, got it. We want to type Makefile right here, and it's going to find Makefile language. Make this a little wider. So this is the Makefile language plugin. It's from JetBrains themselves. It's just not included by default, but we want that because we're going to use a Makefile. So we hit install, and now it says it's installed. Now, if you look up over here, it shows a tab called installed, and it has 11 here. So there's 11 updates. We need to clear the search that I put in there of Makefile, and it shows all these that are available to be updated. So let's click update all. And these plugins aren't included necessarily with the IDE that we just installed, which is why there's some newer versions. Now that that's downloaded, we just click Restart IDE, and it's going to restart it, update those plugins, and we'll be ready to go. So now that we're here, we want to clone a repository. So we'll click clone, and if you have a GitHub account, you can click on this link and you can log in or use a token, and then you'll have a little bit better access, and you could have your own repository that you read write. But for this case, we're going to just use this default. We'll give it a URL, and if you would like, you can actually go to GitHub and my repository, Prog8 hello, and you can copy that right there. Or you can click code here, and it has the URL. You can copy it. And then right over here on that thing, we paste it. Or what I did before was just type it in because I remembered it. And that's going to just clone this hello world repository. I trust this, This is my project. It's pretty simple. You can look at it on the web if you have any concerns, but you can go ahead and hit trust. It does a little bit of indexing when it first starts, but because there's not much to this project, it is very quick generally. And I think my little window there is maybe blocking part of it. It's a little notification about a thing that the IDE uses. We'll just get rid of that. Okay, so now that we're here, I'll just show you real quick the Prog8 hello code. Notice here that, there's no syntax highlighting or anything. And so, we want that. And so if we go to the help menu and we go to diagnostic tools, okay, and then we go down here to special files and folders. So we bring this up. What we're looking for is this one here called config directory. So we just double click that, that'll open it up. And we need to create a directory in here called file types. Well, I'll just, oops, let's get info. I'll just go back over here to this README so that you can see it. It just mentions the Prog8 syntax highlighting. There's, works with pretty much all the JetBrains IDE. If you use Python, you might use PyCharm. And it mentions copying it into the file types folder. And then it tells you where they are. But we can just use the built-in tool in the IDE to get those. So we have it here and it wants us to put it in the file type folder. Well, there isn't one there. So we need to create one, right? So we want this folder called file types. So we can just copy that text and we can just right click in here and say new folder. And then we'll just paste. And now we have file types. And then I will open a new Finder window with just Command N, and then Prog8 is the one that we want, or Prog8 XML. And that's just a recent because it's in my downloads folder. I will just drag it over. You could also click, downloads and find it there. So we drag it over and let go. It actually moved it, and that's fine because we don't really need it in downloads anymore. So now it's in this, IntelliJ IDEA directory. It's in the file types directory within there. And we will be able to see syntax highlighting here. So what we need to do is we need to actually quit IntelliJ and come back. So what I will say, if you're not that familiar with a Mac, I mean, you probably are, but if you notice down here on the tray, there's icons. If we grab this one and drag it to the left of this vertical line, so you see this little line right here, if we drag it to the left of that, it'll keep it. So now I go back up here and say quit. I'm going to quit this. And then when it exits, the dot's gone, but it keeps the icon there. So then I can just restart it by clicking on that. And then we'll come back right where we were, but now you'll see that we have syntax highlighting happening. Let me minimize these other things because we're pretty much done with all of those. So now we have the Prog8 compiler and the tool chain, the IDE here. It's all ready to go. We've installed the Makefile plugin. So that brings us to actually running this example. So on the right here, we have sort of your available tools, like there's this AI chat, etc. You want this big M, which is make. So we click that, it's going to show the make file. And if we expand this, it shows all the targets that are defined in the make file. And so if you just double click on one of these, it will actually execute that target or call make with that target. So if we want to just build everything, we can just double click on all and it pops a terminal down here, and it goes through and it, executes all the build steps that are defined in the all target, which is to compile it for C64 right here. And then it recompiles it for Commander X16 right here. And so now we have, both of those versions compiled. So if we want to run it on our emulator, there's an emu target like emu-C64. So we just double click that, and that's going to launch it in the emulator. So there's our hello world in an emulated Commodore 64. And we can run the same thing for the Commander X16. And there's our hello world for the Commander X16. We'll just power this off. The other thing I'll note, just when you're using this IDE, is that the last few targets, maybe like 3 or 4 that you've used, will be up here, and you can select the one you want, and then pressing this, play button will do that. So, and you could get rid of this, so it's not taking up any space on your screen. So you make some changes. You say whatever, hello world, something here. You just go ahead and hit this play button, and it compiles it and launches it. In this case, it was already compiled. So another option is if you think something is not compiling, or there's a dependency problem, you can call this clean target, which will just remove everything in the build directory. And then if you run your target again, which was like this emulate Commander X16, then it will do a recompile. And really, that's it. So other than installing the Commander X16 emulator and I guess copying the Prog8 language definition over here to get this syntax highlighting, everything can be done from homebrew. On the Mac. So it's very straightforward. And what you end up with is a nice development environment here to make, that new Commander X16, Commodore 64, or maybe one of my new targets game. And we look forward to, seeing you guys out there developing things with Prog8.
Well, thanks, Andrew. We appreciate it, and that was very informative. I think very doable for someone that wants to get started. And personally, I use this development environment on my Mac, and really have enjoyed it in being able to make iterative changes and just be able to run and see what it looks like almost instantly. It really is a good tool chain. All right, well, again, like I said at the beginning of the video, if you haven't watched our other videos, check them out. And we've got a few more in the hopper that we hope to have for you in the next few weeks. So stay tuned, and again, join the Prog8 community. Go to prog8.org. And you'll see all of the forums and places that you can become a part of the Prog8 community, and start programming that game or whatever else you've envisioned yourself that's been on doing. Maybe it's been on your bucket list for a while, like mine was for my first game. So thank you, and stay tuned.
Later, everyone.